Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to Yolama Gaming. Coming at you today with another Arc Ascended video. It's probably been a while since I've done one, but today I was just going to test for fun to see what max and every stat looks like. But a bit of a disclaimer first. This is before the 5.5 like Unreal Engine update. And I actually did have some pretty big performance increases, which I'll probably talk about in another video later this week. But I just wanted to put out this video because I already had the clips and yeah. Also, if you are playing with the performance mod enabled, it for some reason caps your max level at level 75. So I had to delete this first clip because it was capping out at level 75. I couldn't figure out why. I looked it up, and there was a Reddit post that said it's because of that mod. So I went ahead and disabled it and went back in there from there. So what I'm going to be doing basically is just using the addexperience command, and then yeah, just pumping all of it into one stat. Some of the stats level pretty similarly, so I may not go over all of them, but I'm going to try my best to go over the more interesting ones, I guess, is what I'll say. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so the first stat that I'm going to go ahead and max is technically one you can't do on official servers anymore. I mean, you could on Legacy Arc. And you still can level it on unofficial servers, including single player if you enable it, and that is speed. It might be interesting to do another one of these with dinos at some point, but mainly for this video I'm just focused on putting all your points into a single stat as a survivor. So for speed, I'm going to be comparing how fast you can cover 100 meters with default speed and max speed, which, as you guys will see, is 256%, without any boosters or anything, just allowing you to put all your points in speed, default speed. But I went back and calculated that, and that's about 18 miles per hour. Took about 12 seconds to cover the 100 meters. So you figure out how I calculated that. But yeah, somewhere in that neighborhood of 18 miles an hour, which is somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 kilometers an hour. And then, yeah, as you'll see with the maximum speed, I cover the distance in about 4 seconds, which I calculated to be about 48 miles an hour, which I think is like 70-something kilometers an hour. I don't know. I'm not metric, so I wouldn't know. So, as I mentioned, the main command I will be using is addexperience to max out my character, but also I'm giving myself the respecsoup, whatever it's called, mind wipe tonic. Yeah, it's called respecsoup on the commands. I will post these commands in the description if anyone is interested. And just if anyone doesn't know how to access the command bar already, on PC it's the tilde key, and on controller you have to hit pause, hit all your letter buttons or shape buttons if you're on PlayStation, and then the bumper buttons as well. Not the triggers, but the bumper. You have to hit all 6 of those buttons at the same time once you pause, and then it'll pop up a command bar if you're trying to run those commands on console. Which, like I said, I'll post the specific commands in the description. And I'm using the Mind Wipe Tonic to reset my stats so I don't have to enter the command every time I make a new survivor. Because it basically just lets you put all your points in. So if you put all your points into health, you have 1,140. And that's going to be the same across a lot of the stats, because a lot of the stats level up by 10 each time. Some of them don't, and I'll mention that for the ones that don't, and you will see. Like speed already didn't level up by 10. It's only about 2% or so each time you level up. But for stamina and food and weight and some other things, it's only 10 each time. So, yeah. One interesting thing about leveling your health up this high, or really anywhere above 500, is that you can survive any fall in the game, because for some reason 500 is the maximum fall damage you can take. So your benefit in upgrading your character past 500 is pretty limited. But for most purposes, I would say anywhere around 300 is plenty, because with that much you can survive mega rabies. So that's probably where you should be. But if you leveled your health all the way, 1,140 is where you'd be at. I also tried maxing my character's weight stat, but that didn't seem that interesting to show off. I mean, I guess you could carry 3 stacks of metal around, which would be kind of interesting at 11,000 or 1,140. But yeah, not super interesting, not a ton to demonstrate. Like I said, you could carry an absolute ton, but not as crazy as some of the other stats. And likewise, stamina scale is the same, food stamina scale is the same. But I'll talk about stamina at least. The others, I don't know about. But the next stat I chose to level up was oxygen, which levels up by 20 each time, I think. So it ended up being 2,280 oxygen, which lasts about 15 minutes. You lose 4 oxygen a second when underwater. So you could stay underwater for, like I said, about 15 minutes, I think, with that amount of oxygen. Which would be kind of nice, I guess. I mean, you don't need to craft a scuba tank, but definitely not the most useful stat to max out. I also then went on to max my stamina stat with my character, and that resulted in the same rate of decrease as oxygen, but you get half as much because it only levels by 10 each time. So you can run for about 7.5 minutes continuously with max stamina. I didn't try like punching stuff or jumping around, but that gives a good idea of how much it really is if you max out your stamina at 1,140. Here, in my opinion, we start to get to some of the more interesting stats to max out. Specifically, this one is melee damage, which maxes out at 620%. I don't know what that roughly equates to each time. I think 5% each with each level. And I will be comparing the base damage with several weapons versus the max damage. So yeah, let's get into it. So I'll just go ahead and show you guys the damage that it's doing with all these weapons with the 620%. And then at the end of that clip, I will just have a slide that shows the damage comparisons with 620% damage and with regular damage. So I went in creative mode and grabbed the most commonly used weapons in Ark, including some ranged weapons, just to see if the gun butt damage is affected by melee leveling. All primitive, of course, but I think this goes to show how crazy the damage would really get if you did have like a higher damage pike blueprint or something like that. So this is really just to gather an idea. Obviously, this would probably be a build that you use in PvP, or maybe on single player, I guess, but yeah, there's not really a ton of reason in single player to use something like this. It would be a bit overkill when you have dinos and stuff like that. So after the previous clip, I recorded with the same weapons with base damage as well, and I filled in this table with the values. I guess you could screenshot that if you're interested, but there's just a comparison between some common weapons at max damage and minimum damage for headshot damage and just regular hits. Where you hit them on the body actually does affect the damage, I noticed in the clip, but that should give you a general idea. The next stat I tried was crafting skill, which again maxes out at 1140. I spent way too long trying to find a blueprint, and the one I found wasn't particularly good to demonstrate this, but I achieved a maximum crafting bonus of about 47%, which what a crafting bonus does is it just gives you a little bit of extra armor, durability, heat protection, cold protection, whatever, damage, depending on what item you're crafting. So it gives you a little bit of a bonus on top of whatever the blueprint says it's rated for. Now, I would assume with higher quality blueprints, this, like, the amount of actual benefit you get would be much higher. So this could be a skill that's worth maxing if you're in a large enough tribe and you just want to have a dedicated crafter player or something. The last stat I maxed was fortitude, which maxes at, you'll probably see it on screen, whatever number it is. With this much fortitude, you can survive in most ice biomes, unless it's exceptionally cold, without any fur armor, which is kind of nice. Probably most deserts too, without any sort of special desert gear. And eat 100 narco berries or more without getting knocked out. So kind of handy, I guess. Although I don't know if it's worth putting that many points into, especially when you could just wear armor that makes you take less, makes you get knocked out harder, or armor that keeps you warm or keeps you cold or whatever. That would probably be more worthwhile than dumping a bunch of points in this stat. But I guess if that works for you, it works for you. That's about it for this video. See you guys in the next one.